and mute everyone except the main speaker. And so welcome everyone. It's October 26th, 2023, getting near the end of a dynamic year. And we have with us today the great privilege of our good friend, Will Barney, who is going to share with us his tapestry, his interweaving of the news of the world to paint a picture of what's really going on and show the bad things and the good things and how everything is leading towards a transformation for the better. So we are Brilliance in Commerce, a project of La Verite. Thank you everyone for joining us. We have a really good group today. It's going to be an exciting flow of news. We are members of the Worldwide Charter for International Commerce. So if you haven't already, look at that on the website sometime. May be inspiring for you. And we have a series of webinars, a lot of Zoom shows that take place with usually trust topics. And then, of course, we have our illustrious speakers like Will who join us. And really, I must say, Will, that you are kind of a messenger of all messengers. You kind of take the best from all the other messengers and weave it together in a way that really puts in a one-stop shop all the best intel for the transformation of the old to the new.
Thank you. That's very kind.
Quantum financial system. And some say the world is going to hell. I say that's where we've been, and now we're awakening and rising above it. My name is Tonson Fairmont. Glad to be of service. Thank you again for everyone being co-creators of this this new world. So without further ado, let's go ahead and just stop the screen sharing. And Will, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Tonson. Wow, so wonderful to be with everybody today. So we've got some very interesting things that have transpired since we last talked. I think it's been, was it August, or it's been a while, maybe July, I forget.
Well,
so much
show,
has happened. Yeah.
On this show it was September, but still.
Okay. There we go.
Yeah.
So, so a lot of crazies going on. In some previous podcasts, I've talked about the disclosure of the deep state, the disclosure of what they've been up to, what they've been doing, this cabal that has been infiltrating each of the countries of the world, setting up their own Babylon banking system, and siphoning the wealth of the people. You know, America is a good example of this. We've been quite prosperous here, but they've also made a lot off of us when you consider what's been going on. I had a conversation earlier today with a banker friend of mine. I was actually at the bank. I was getting some documents notarized and some things, and we talked for about an hour. Very interesting, the current climate, because up to this point, for the last 100 years, we've had a system that was initiated in 1913 called the Federal Reserve System. And this system was designed to create money by creating and opposing debt at the same time. In fact, you can't put money into the system unless you create a debt. You need to have a bond, a loan, something like that. And the challenge is that these particular debt instruments always require repayment in the same currency you borrowed. And normally that wouldn't be a problem for most people. Think, well, that just makes sense. However, if you borrow $100 and they charge you interest, and now you need to pay back, say, $105, where did you get the other $5? Well, if you can only pay it back in their currency, you have to go borrow that $5 in order to pay it back. See, so So it's created this interesting dynamic. Along with that, there's been an income tax system. And I don't know how many are aware of this, but as the taxes are collected, they go to the collection agency. And in our case, in America, it's the IRS, CRA, I think in Canada, they'd love these 3-letter agency names. And they collect the funds. But where do they send the funds? Everyone thinks the funds go to their government. Oh, I'm a good taxpayer, I pay my government. But the money actually goes directly to the Federal Reserve, and they send it wherever they want to. If you look at the congressional budgets each year, there's always a portion of funds that go to paying the interest on the national debt. So Congress is setting aside money to pay the debt. Meanwhile, the IRS is collecting your money and giving it directly to the bank. I asked a gentleman I know that's quite wise on the subject. I says, how is this right or fair? And how does that make sense? And he says, well, it makes a lot of sense. They loan you their money with debt, and then they charge you rent to use their currency. And that's what income tax is. So there's been a lot of discussions, I know, with Brilliance in Commerce about, is income tax even a constitutional thing in America? According to the 16th Amendment, it is not. Certainly something that is not apportioned. So it's interesting, just that little bit of background about our system. This same system is pretty much identical in terms of functionality in most all countries that have shall we say, a modern central bank, because most all central banks are owned by the same people. So you have a cabal of people that have formed these banks. They got every country to borrow the money from them, and then they get to directly take the money from the people that they want for their portion through this taxation system. So is it fair? Is it right? No, but it is what it is. And what we're watching right now is we're watching a war raging between the people that are awakening to what's been done to them and the cabal who wants to stay in power and keep doing that to us. Okay. So this keeps going. What tends to happen, and particularly if you look at the system now, we've had the last time we had a reset of the current financial system was in 1971, when through an executive order by President Nixon, we were removed from the gold standard and placed on purely fiat. But at the same time, they tried to give it some backing by declaring that oil or fuels must be purchased using this currency. In other words, some call it the petrodollar or the oil dollar. What's interesting about the way this is playing out is if you look over the last 12 months with what the BRICS nations are doing, is they're beginning to purchase oil in whatever currency they have. And they're not exchanging into U.S. currency. And when countries find out they can purchase oil in Chinese yuan or in Japanese yen or Russian ruble, or pick your currency, they don't need this U.S. dollar anymore, right? Because if they can trade directly with each other, then that's an issue. So this creates additional stress on what is already a stressed out system that's ballooned with a lot of debt. So the additional stress has been placed over the last several months. For those that are watching this, and I kind of follow this because it's of interest to me, you have countries, particularly the BRICS countries, that are abandoning U.S. treasuries. They're selling off what they have. They used to be a purchaser of U.S. debt, at least treasury debt, and now they're selling it off. Just recently, you had China sell another $21 billion. This is just the last couple of weeks. This is a big deal because it tends to weaken and put pressure on the dollar. But as I indicated, I think previously, this doesn't mean that immediately the dollar's weak, gold and silver is high, because we have a manipulated system. So when you have a system like this, they're going to do whatever they have to do to stay alive. And they're running out of tricks in the tool bag to do this. And when you run out of tricks, your last ditch effort is usually take us to war, because you can cover up a whole myriad of things while everyone's distracted about war. So we've seen this play out here recently in the Middle East, and they're trying to pull the U.S. into this circumstance. Oh, you need to pay money. We need to help fund Israel because they're being attacked by Hamas. All of this type of thing. So there's a push to again create money, create some more debt, borrow the money, send it to Israel to keep that whole thing going. So what's really happening in the Middle East? All of these wars are what we call banker wars, typically. So when bankers get involved in wars, they like war because they don't care who wins or loses. They make money on either side. Okay, they win either way. So, and if you can keep everyone distracted long enough, maybe you can find some way to have a reset and they can stay in power. Now, those that are following Brilliance in Commerce and even listening to some of our videos realize that that's not happening. They're not staying in power. They're losing power. And every week that goes by, they lose more. And we're literally watching this, and they're getting frantic. They're getting mad about it. It's really an interesting situation. So when the situation broke out in Israel, you had good and bad players on both sides of Israel. So Israel is protected by one of the most advanced weapon systems that the planet has. They call it the Iron Dome. It's a missile defense system, and nothing gets through this thing. It senses everything. You could have a child drop a toy on the other side of the wall, and this thing senses it, and everybody comes to look, see what happened. Okay? It's very sensitive. But the morning that these rockets hit, for some reason, that was down. Why was it down? Who wanted that to take place? So the rockets came in, and some of these missiles, these things that were fired, we're now finding out were U.S. weapons that came from Ukraine to Hamas. So while the U.S. has been trying to support Ukraine, it's been handing weapons and money into the hands of the cabal, who's trying to keep these terrorist organizations going. They can use these organizations for their purposes. You know, they like having a bad guy to blame, right? Even though they fund them, so that they can keep this stirred up. So, what are we being distracted from? This is what we got to pay attention to. What are they distracting us from by launching these wars? What is really going on? What's really happening is their entire grip on the world has been a financial system that enslaves humanity with the taxation and everything else. And they're losing that. So if they can distract us with wars and other things, then they can keep us away from what is the important thing. Over the last few weeks, October is known as a reporting month. Usually all the third quarter reports come in October. And for those that are watching these reports, the data isn't good. In fact, the number of companies filing bankruptcy is at an all-time high. It hasn't been this high since the last recession in 2008 and 9 and 10, during that period when everybody was just crumbling. So we're at a level we haven't seen in a while. And if you look at the data and the charts, we're beginning to mimic what happened in 1929. And the data suggests we should be in a massive crash at this point, but we're not. One of the interesting things is today is actually the anniversary of the 1929 crash. Black Thursday occurred 94 years ago today. Um, are we headed for another pick the day, Black Monday, Black Thursday, Black Friday? We'll see. The system is crumbling. It's getting more difficult for them to hold it up. But as countries are abandoning the treasuries, like what's happening with Asia, Japan, China, and many other countries that are selling off their treasuries, they have a couple of reasons for doing this. And I don't like to get into the technical and get people all bogged down into that. But basically, they bought these treasuries when rates were at 0.5%, 1%. Now rates are at 5%. So why not sell these? Even if you got to take a loss, let's get rid of that because they can always put the money into something with a higher rate. Okay. So there's incentive for those holding U.S. debt to somehow shed it off their books. At the same time, you have challenges going on in other countries where their financial system is on the brink of collapse as well. And this is going on in Europe. Catherine brought up Europe just before we started. Hey, what's going on there? We thought things were going to happen there, and now they're saying it's going to move to March. What's happening is everyone's hoping the war will stave off the inevitable, but it's not really working that way. A good example of this is when Hamas hit Israel, they went in and they took some hostages, all kinds of crazy reports. The news started reporting babies were being beheaded and all kinds of really scary things. According to information that I've been able to find, we can't find any validity to these horrendous reports. So the media is lying. Why are they lying? Well, they want to drag us all into this war. And if you can make it look really bad, Hamas has a chance. Hamas is a terror organization like Hezbollah. Okay, so let's just identify the bad guys like to use terror organizations because maybe they have things in common. Okay, so here's what's happening. There is they wanted Israel to rush into Gaza, start doing this house to house because they had mines set, they had everything set. But did they do that? No. They hurried up and got ready, and then they stopped. They paused. Oh, well, we're going to start that soon. So what is really happening? What's mostly happening at the present moment is not visible. It's actually under the ground. They're going through the tunnels, and they're clearing those out first. If they don't do this, they will have provided the enemy a place of escape when they do the surface work. Okay? So this is not something done in a day. Look how long Ukraine has taken to clean out. It's taken way longer than the few months everyone thought it would be. So is the Middle East going to be longer? Well, what is the Middle East? Israel's had underground tunnels there. It has become the crossroads of the world in human trafficking. Now, you have people there that are from that area, the Palestinian people, been there for hundreds of years. It's their home, okay? But what's happened is what in that country is the same thing that's happened here in many others. You have an infiltration of the Khazarian mafia, the cabal, that gets in there. They take control of the country. Then they tell the people what they want the people to know while they do whatever they want. And underneath the surface, they've been doing whatever they want. And it's quite horrendous. Here's the reality. We're moving to the golden age. We're moving to a beautiful new world. It's on a trajectory and it can't be stopped. In fact, it's speeding up, and this is frightening them even more because they can't seem to get their events to have the lasting impact that they once had. A good example is something like what happened last night. They had a shooter went on a rampage in Maine. Okay. I'm now hearing somewhere between 18 to 20 people died and others injured. They're again calling it the lone gunman. We've seen this same pattern over and over and over. Oh, now we find out he's got this whole history of training with the FBI and everything else. So, so they literally train up their own terroristic people to come and cause some event so they can distract everybody once again from something else. What is this something else? And every time they do this, they try to launch a another control measure. In the case of the gun stuff, it's let's let's take everybody's guns, because if we just take everybody's guns, there won't be any more of these atrocities. Now, you and I probably know that's the dumbest thing we've ever heard, because a criminal doesn't care about the law anyway, right? They don't care if they're going to get a gun, whether it's lawful or not lawful, right? Because they're going to do what they're going to do. So this is an example of how we're in this the final. I think we're in the final theater, if I could put it that way, of this old system coming to an end. And war in the past has been very good for them. They've been able to use it to cover a lot of things. They had us in a war in Vietnam when they reset the financial system last time. They had things to distract us. And they wanted a war this time for another distraction so that they could do this again while staying in control. Well, that's not happening. And so what's important for us to know as we, the people, as the good, loving humans of the earth, is that God is with us. We are going to get through this, and we will be liberated from these things. The beautiful thing about that I love about your organization, Tonson, and all the wonderful people that come here is Brilliance in Commerce is teaching each of you how to be free, how to be sovereign, and that you can start right now to throw off the chains and the shackles. It's actually available in our law when we apply it properly. So there are things we can do right now. A lot of people want me to talk about the RV. What's going on with the RV? What is the RV? RV is revaluation of currencies. We're not talking about the camper you're driving down to the lake to camp in. The revaluation of currencies. What does this mean, and why is it even happening? What's happening is you have countries that have been massively suppressed on their money. Some of those was done using U.S. military to suppress them. Countries like Iraq, where their value of their currency is very low. It used to be that one Iraqi dinar was so strong it would take $3 US to buy one. Okay, that's where it used to be. Very similar to like Kuwait. So what's happening with this? Well, they're going back to a real value with their currency. That's going to be happening for that country. There's several other countries also moving in an upward direction. Vietnam will be another one. Vietnam has tremendous output. They have really grown as an industrial base over the last many years. If you go from the time of the war, up till now, it's been amazing what's happened to Vietnam. Has their money moved in lockstep with that progress? No, it's been suppressed, been held down. So they're going to move. It's going to move. But what's going to happen with this? These transactions, these revaluation of currencies, are not meant to be paid out in the old fiat debt system. Do you want to receive IOU debt notes for something that should be lawful money? So, when we get frustrated about why isn't the RV happening, or why isn't this country able to revalue their currency, we need to understand that the old system must die so that we have a new currency to offer everyone. It's a very simple concept. And yet I know it's really hard. There's a lot of gurus, as people call them, that go around saying, oh, it's going to be next Thursday or Tuesday or whatever date. Honestly, it's going to happen when we see these events unfold and when we see the old system literally come down. So we're going to have a day when there's going to be a massive adjustment. I don't know what day that's going to be. Today is the anniversary of Black Thursday. It didn't happen today, but the market was down today. It's been down quite a bit over the last month. So I expect that we're headed for that moment. Back in the end of September, I put out a message. I said, don't expect, with the countries abandoning the US dollar, for the dollar to lose value, because they've got a trick up their sleeve. And that trick is they're going to buy up these treasuries from the other countries and keep supporting the dollar to keep the dollar propped up. It's kind of the only thing they got left. They're good at debt. They're going to do more debt. Now, does this help them? No, it's kind of like taking the bus that is the Federal Reserve that's headed for the cliff and you're mashing the accelerator. Okay. But when that's the only trick you got left, then that's what you play. And so that's what we're watching them play. So that is a tendency to hold metals down. But there's two things going on with metals. Well, first, it's that action, but secondarily, it's the manipulation. How long has the metals market been manipulated by Western banks? It goes back decades. They've been manipulating this for 100 years. Okay. Why? Why do they want to keep it down? Well, first of all, they know this thing's crashing and they're trying to buy up as much as they can. If you were to look at actual metal purchases by central banks over the last year, it would surprise you how much they're buying. They know they have to get prepared. So if they can hold it down as long as they can, that gives them a chance to get it at a better price. But look, folks, that's also good for you. If the price is down, great. It's a bargain. Pick it up. Because when the stuff hits the fan and we hit that trigger point, you're going to see these metals launch. They're going to go way up to a real market value. I don't know what that value is. Some are saying you could have gold go to 10,000. You could have silver hit 1,000, 1,500. Will it hit that? I don't know. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not going to say, yeah, it's going to hit this number. But if you look at fundamentals, if you look at the basis of what's happening right now, when a currency reaches the end of its useful life, the inflation goes up very, very fast. So you'll have this thing where it's going to be ridiculous what happens. It's going to shoot up. And that's going to be when the panic really sets in for most people, those that are not already awake. We have an opportunity right now to, I think, talk to our neighbors, talk to our friends and say, let's get ready. And there's simple things you can do, because the good guys that are on the same side with us, and there are many, have already been telling us, make sure you got food, make sure you got water, make sure you can sustain yourself for a few weeks, because we may have a period of time, a few weeks, when we've got to take care of ourselves. Because what happens when the system comes to the end of its life is going to be affected by everyone, because it means this. When you have a system that's debt-based, the entire system is credit lines. Everything runs on a credit line. The truck that drops off the next load of groceries at your local supermarket delivered that load because of a credit line. What happens when the credit line is frozen? When they can't pay for anything with it anymore? When it's not used? Well, now the store's got to come up with cash to pay for that truckload. You will see supply chain disruptions. There's almost no way around it. It's an inevitability, at least for a period of time. So this is why we just talk about, this isn't about fear. It's don't be scared. everyone's got an opportunity here to know what's coming, to literally see the writing on the wall so they can start getting themselves in a better position where they can handle what's about to take place. Now, I always like to see the good side of this, and there is a lot of good. Okay. Here's the good. What we're getting on the other side of this is sound money. We're getting money that is real, that's backed by gold and silver on the other side of this. No more debt. In fact, most of this debt, at least if it's been generated through the Federal Reserve, may be declared as fraudulent and unlawful. Wouldn't it be great if you logged into your bank and the balance on your mortgage was zero one day? I know of a guy this happened to. He logged in to make his payment. He says, oh, yeah, I owe like about 210,000. Seemed like that's what it was last time I looked at it. I got to make my payment. He logs in and it's zero. He's like, something's wrong. So he calls the bank. Hey, I got a problem. And they're like, no, your balance zero. You're fine. You don't owe us anything. Well, this gentleman was the fortunate one that was part of the test case of the Jubilee that's coming. So will everybody get that? I don't know, but in this case, he did. And we'll have to wait and see how that turns out for everyone. But good, sound money and the ability to trade freely with one another will change our lives in a way that is miraculous. You will see abundance and prosperity come back to this nation and the world at a rate we've not yet seen before. It will be growth that is unbelievable. Now, it won't just start the first month that way. It's going to ramp up because we've been ramped down all the way back to 2020. So 3 years now, where we had COVID shut everything down. They literally shut the whole world down for COVID. Okay. And we were trying to bounce back from that, but now we've had 3 years of just abysmal. Ever since the stolen election of 2020, that this has been going on. And a lot of people are still contending, oh, it wasn't stolen, it was legitimate. But the evidence is, it's everywhere. There's so much evidence that you can't come to any other conclusion. Now, there's been an interesting thing take place this last week for those that were watching regarding the elections. And you had some of these people like Sidney Powell and take a plea deal. Wow, why would she do that? Why would she take a plea deal? I don't know. It's a little strange to me too. But what if there's a whole plan behind this? What if they're wanting the cabal to think they're winning at the moment while they clean up some other things? There's a lot happening. And when you're in the fog of war, and believe me, people, we're in a war. It's a different war. It's not guns and bullets. It's an information war, but it's real nonetheless. And this is actually more difficult because everyone's trying to discern truth from error, right from wrong. Where's the truth at? I'm surrounded by propaganda. It is prolific, and that's where we have to really learn to use our intuitive abilities. We actually have great intuitive abilities as human beings. We're born with it. It's God-given. It's a beautiful thing. And so we have the ability to discern this, and we're seeing this play out. Look how quickly in the Israeli conflict that just happened, look how quickly people began to point the finger at Israel because the Iron Dome was down. Well, who did this? Who's really behind this, right? So there's awakening going on, unlike anything I've seen before. I remember when I first woke up, I thought I was just a lone man in the wilderness, right? And I bumped into a couple of people, but it felt like it was maybe 1%. Now we're getting masses. Now it's changing. And as that happens, we all raise energetically our frequency and our consciousness. And the amazing thing about that, and whether you understand this or not, it's happening, is that within each of us, because we are light beings and we react, everything's light and frequency. As we raise that vibration, we create an environment in the world where these dark energies, the cabal and what they do, can't exist. It can't even function in the presence of light. It's not able to. And everything they do falls apart. We have witnessed them losing over and over and over for months now. Everything they try, it works for a day or two, and then it just falls apart. So the good news is we win by simply living a higher life of light and vibration, of higher consciousness. By doing this, we win. We create a situation where they can't abide here. They're not able to do it. And they may be frustrated. They may not like it. They may kick and scream. They may throw tantrums and all of those wonderful things. But it won't matter. We just simply smile and continue to do what we do best, and that's live in faith and peace, and continue to love one another. And so great, incredible things are unfolding. Technology is coming out at a rapid pace. I'm going to be talking a little more about that later, but I will say this. Yesterday, quantum healing systems, and I talk about, them quite a bit. You guys have seen me show the QT wave device. And they made an announcement yesterday. Starting November, the membership price is going up. It's going up quite a bit. It's going to be $1,200 a membership. You do something now between now and then, you'll still get it at the regular price that it has been at. They're having to do that because everything's moving to the next level for them, and they're offering a tremendous value right now. So if you haven't taken an opportunity, you might think about that. The other big announcement is they are launching the Replicator project. And we'll be helping them. I'm going to be working with them. I'll be one of their tests people that are going to be working with this device. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in the future. But these kinds of devices are going to change us, everything. You're talking like a box that's the size of a microwave, and what meal do you want? Punch it in, and it'll create that for you. 30 seconds later, or probably less, you've got a whole meal. And it's good, nutritious food. It's filled with light and energy. All the good things that we need, right? As light beings. So it's really cool things. That's just one touch on the technology coming, but there's going to be more announcements tomorrow coming out. So incredible things await us. I get asked a lot, and I'm just going to approach this now before we open up to questions. I get asked a lot, when will we finally be there? And I'm going to answer it probably similar to what I've done in the past. It's this: when can you declare a war over? Think about it. Can you say, oh, next Thursday, the war is done? It's not that simple. You know you're there when you arrive, and we will get there. October has been explosive in so many ways. September, we had a lot of information flooding out. It was disclosures all over the place. October has been about action, and I don't see that slowing down, actually. I think we're going to continue to see more action going on. Will we be done with this by the end of this year? That's been the intention of those involved. Can it be promised? I don't think so. But everyone will make all their effort to make it so. That much I can say, because I talked to some of them, and it is um, every hour of every day, everybody's working so hard on this. And the best thing that each of you can do is lift your vibration, lift the frequency, make it easier for this work to happen. And we get to the end of this very quickly. So that's what I wanted to share in the beginning here, Tonson. And I know there's a ton of questions because people have been waiting to ask questions. So maybe we'll get to that part now.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Okay, everyone, time for the questions and answer session. And Will, we have a couple in chat already. One of them is from David. Is it likely that everything will happen at the same time? For example, the RV and metals, real value, and so on?
I think you're going to see things very close succession. Um, when we get to the point of let's just say a lot of people are waiting for the big day of the EBS, okay, emergency broadcast message. When we get to that message, it will probably come at a time when war, financial collapse, and everything has coalesced at the same time, and it will make sense that there'll be an EBS message. I think once you hit that, it will look like everything's happening at once. Hope that helps.
Thank you. Absolutely. Okay, Mariana saying, can you please repeat the name of the CIE and its website? I think she may be referring to the quantum healing system.
Um, uh, yes, that quantum healing systems, QHS is the short term we use for it, but quantumhealingsystems.org is the name of it. So there you'll find some information there. There's not very much about the replicators yet. This is they're just launching that project, and it will be undergoing a variety of testing phases and probably several different versions of the prototype before it's actually ready for public. When it is ready, it'll be something that'll become available. My guess is probably on a retail level, that it's going to be something that's going to be placed where you could buy one, right?
Yes.
So it'll be interesting. We'll try to feature parts of that when we get into the prototype, using the prototype, talk a little bit about that. I'll be able to share a little more when we get to that point. Right now it's, we're about 30 to 40 days out from, working with the first devices.
I know a couple of months ago they were being attacked by dark forces. How are they doing with that?
The attacks have been pretty steady. However, there have been miraculous things that have happened that have kept everything rolling, and it's really quite amazing what's going on with that. So it's almost as if divine intervention keeps coming in and clearing the way again, no matter what happens.
Very good.
Everybody just stays positive and said, doesn't matter. Tomorrow's a new day where you just keep going.
Great. EB is asking, what is the new currency that will be backed by real and lawful money?
That's going to be issued by the Treasury. It'll be U.S. notes. I'm hearing that this will be similar to like what happened during President Lincoln's administration in the 1860s, where he launched the greenbacks. 480 million, I believe, greenbacks were printed. Those were in circulation until the 1980s. So since the greenback, we haven't had a paper currency that was actually printed by our government. It seems amazing that it's been this long, but you can see how long they've had a grip on the country. Really began when they got President Grant in 1871 to go along with their agenda with corporations and everything. So from that point till now, They've had quite a grip. So with that going away, you'll have the country issuing its own currency. And now, what do they back this with? Well, they back it with the real wealth of the country. One of the things that's amazing is if people knew and could see all of the asset reports that have been collated, even from something as simple as the Grand Canyon, they'd be astounded. This country is very wealthy in oil, gold, and silver, in all kinds of precious minerals. Very unique that there's so much here. So there's plenty to back the currency, and the printing of it. It's going to be really a momentous day. A country that prints its own currency is never in debt, never has to borrow anything. It's inherent within the value of the country. So it's going to be beautiful.
Ascended Master Saint Germain prophesied that America has greater strength than any of us realize, and it's hidden, and that it will throw off the sinister force completely and bring in the golden age.
Oh, wow. That's an interesting, I hadn't heard that, but it makes complete sense from what I know.
Yeah. Ashok, your name is from an enlightened king of ancient times. Ashok is asking, should one prepare for unrest, food, security, money, and so on during the time of this reset? Even if we stock up 3 months of food and water, we may not be able to help our neighbors and others in need, and not everyone may be looking at it through the same lens as this group to get prepared, even if we pass on the message. Would the government help sustain the population with basic needs during this time?
Short answer is yes. They're already planning that they may have to have the National Guard distribute food and supplies. They prefer that the people, take care of themselves, because it's going to be a daunting task if they have to do it all. And so we need to try to help our neighbor as we can. But the government is prepared that they can do this. A lot of people don't know this, but when they went into the tunnels and began clearing those out, you wouldn't believe the stockpiles of food they found, and all of it was non-GMO. Cabal was preparing to go hide out themselves in case they had to nuke the world. It's unbelievable.
Osho once said, the politicians are building a funeral pyre for mankind. He said, let them jump into it.
Yes.
Rena is asking, how is it that Nantanye is still in office? I'm not familiar with that name. Are you?
No. What country?
Nantanye. Maybe she means Netanyahu.
Oh, Netanyahu. Oh,
That could
okay.
be
Netanyahu.
spelling.
Bibi Netanyahu. That is a good question. What I can say is that everyone that needs to be revealed and exposed to the people will be thrown in everyone's face. Look
Yes.
what we've seen with this whole Biden show. Now you can see it, right? Now you can see how bad they are. It's when people find out the truth of the Bidens, they're going to find out they were one of the most blatantly criminal families on the planet.
Yes.
I mean, corruption was, you don't stay in politics for 50 years and not be involved in corruption.
Reminds me of something Mark Twain said. He said, I don't tell jokes. I just watch what government does and report the facts.
Yeah.
Okay, JB, you have your hand up. Let's put you on the air.
Oh, hi. Hi, Bill.
Hi,
Hi
JB.
there.
Hi. I have a really interesting question and a perspective that, all the things that I listen to, Bill, we all talk about financing and discharging of debt and how all these things are going to improve the economy financially. But we don't talk about the existing tyranny that exists in our counties. and our courts, we and the military industrial complex. When this turns over into Nasara, which is what the cabal has been really trying to stop, but when this turns over, do you think that Admiralty will be kicked back out to sea immediately? Because that's where the tyranny lies. They are going after we the people at excessive rates now. I don't know if they want the fiat. They're generating bonds. Of course, they bond you out as soon as they arrest you. They do all these kinds of tyrannical things, and they have to know that their life expectancy is soon to be cut short. What is your take on what is going to happen which is not broached, that's not discussed? You'll hear everybody, including yourself, speak about the finances and improvement of the economy, but we don't talk about the courts. They don't belong on America right now. We ended the Act of 1871, September 1st. I don't know why this trickle down conduct is still going on. The Fed has been incorporated into Treasury. The IRS has been incorporated into Treasury. But yet people still talk about paying their taxes, worrying about the IRS. It's like nothing in real time is happening. And when you see, people are reporting that Nasara, you can see aspects of Nasara, debt forgiveness, blah, 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 again, finances, but no one goes down and really hits the county level where all the tyranny is happening to we the people. How is your perception? Because don't give me that Nasara has already started. All you have to do is look out your window and you see some traffic cop pulling somebody over for the bond, for a citation, for a bill of attainder, which is against the Constitution. And you know that this thing is not in place. You know that Nasara is not happening or has not happened. What is your take, and when do you think we're going to actually get into the nitty gritty of Nasara, where the courts are kicked out to sea, and we have an immediate stand down of the courts and police, and that our sovereignty is returned to us? Because that
I think it. I actually think it
tyranny.
comes. It's. I actually don't see that happening until we get to the point of the EBS. There is Nasara things going on in the background, but none of that is made public. And if you were to go and talk to people in the county, I'll bet you they don't even know what you're talking about. They're clueless because they just work a job, right? They just go and do their job. This is what I was told to do. The counties, the cities, it all has to be changed. If we go to constitutional law, all of these corporations, and almost every county is incorporated, as well as cities and states, they're gone. The corporations have to leave. Now, where's the government in a state if you get rid of the corporation? Well, it's sitting there, probably with empty seats with cobwebs all over them. Hasn't been occupied for decades. Okay. So we have to begin to elect new people to fill real government seats according to constitutional law. It's actually a requirement within Nasara that all of that be done, that the judges and the lawyers all be sent to school. You got to learn constitutional law. We're not doing admiralty anymore. This doesn't happen in a day. It's not something that's going to be done overnight. That it's going to take time. When the military acts and we've got an EBS and they step in, how long will we be under that temporary martial law? I don't know. but it will be sufficient time that these adjustments and changes can begin to be made. So there's a lot that's coming to us. It's going to be for those of us here on this call. We're probably thrilled. We're going to jump and scream and shout and dance in the street, right? For others, they're going to be just glued to their TV with their eyes wide and their jaw on the floor, going, what, and trying to figure it out. So I don't see us being able to just overnight flip a switch and it's done. It's kind of too big for that. But if you look at, everybody's been talking about, well, we're seeing parts of Nassara, or like the case I told about the guy who had his mortgage zeroed. These are evidences that they're trying to prepare. They're trying to get ready for what's coming. And in some cases get behind the scenes, get the infrastructure in place so that we at least have an easier transition than what it otherwise would have been had that not been done. So that's the best I can offer at this point.
Thanks, Will. And JB, thank you for your question. And there are a lot of other people who have been asking questions we need to move on to, but maybe if we get time later, we can come back to you. Will, we have EB asking, will American citizens be freed from being 14th Amendment chattel citizens?
Yes. The short answer is yes. When we pull out that Constitution, take a look at it, how many amendments are in there? How many are really there? If we go back to the actual government constitution, not the corporation. Research on that. Do a little look. I'm pretty certain I know there's 12. Is there 13? Maybe. I don't think there's 14.
That were properly ratified. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. And so, yeah, I totally agree, Will. The answer is definitely yes, with a capital Y. Dr. Pamela is asking, what can you tell us about the Zim bond redemption and Zimbabwe's role in the quantum financial reset?
Well, I can tell you a little bit. Trying to think of what. There's some things I can say, so I'll try to give a little bit about it, and some things they've asked me not to. Okay, so here it is. In 2008, most of these Zim bonds that you're referring to were printed in 2008. The AA series, and it says right on the note, bearer. It uses the term bearer, so you know it's a bond rather than a currency. When these were put out there, they were designed to be backed by the gold of the country, gold within the ground. And Zimbabwe has in-ground assets. It's probably the richest country in Africa in terms of in-ground assets because of the concentration that they have. So there were some good patriotic people that were part of this whole movement to remove the cabal, that wanted to do something to counter what's been happening over the last many years. So they began printing those bonds as a means to counter the cabal. The cabal found out about it about 4 months or so into the printing. I forget the exact timing. And they shut the whole thing down, but not before all these were printed. And now they're out there and they're in circulation. So what are these and how will they be dealt with? Because they're a bond, their value will be different than currency. The values, I can't tell you. You won't know that until you probably get to an actual transaction with it. It certainly won't be revealed. And if I knew what you were going to be paid, they wouldn't let me say anyway. So let's not talk about the value. The idea is that because the numbers are so big and so large with these, that they want everyone to be using this particular bond towards the humanitarian effort that's going to take to rebuild the world. So I do know that these particular transactions will have a project requirement. I don't know the extent of that. Um, you know, there's many people that got into this because they had projects. They're like myself. I mean, we didn't get into these assets trying to make money. We got into it because we had projects, and we're actually invited to do that as a means of doing the project. So for us, it might be different than maybe some other people. There will be a value given, I believe, at the closing, and when you do your transaction, that will be probably somewhat commensurate with, do you have projects to fund, or do you have something you can assign the project funds to that might determine that value? Because the numbers are so high on those particular bonds, it'd be unrealistic to think they're just going to hand you a 1-to-1 ratio on something like that. I think that would be completely unrealistic. Like I said, I don't know the numbers, but I do know that you'll be well cared for if you're doing that. But more importantly, they're going to want to say, what are you going to do with this? What kind of good are you going to do in the world with it? And that will be part of your discussion at that time. I hope that helps.
Thank you. Absolutely. Okay, someone calling from an iPhone is asking, great seeing you, Will and Tonson. Will, would you elaborate a bit further about the current status of the IRS as a legitimately recognized agency by Americans, or is it more a dying, impotent agency given the growing awareness of its corruption?
It's probably both of those, depending on who you talk to. Good question. I'm not an IRS expert. I do know it's a collection agency. I do know it's a corporation. I've been unable myself to find an act of Congress that created it. I've found several things that Congress did to adjust it or adjust the laws that it's supposed to operate under, but I couldn't find an act of Congress to create it. So it's clearly not a government agency. However, how you should interact with that, I can't really say. I'm not one to give advice on that. What's interesting to me is that for many years, those in the House and the Senate have made public comments many times on video, talking about the U.S. having a voluntary tax system. So why would they say that? Well, it's because there is choices that you probably make in your life as to whether you come under the requirement to file or not file. And like I said, I'm not an expert on that, but that's something everybody needs to research and look into themselves and, make a decision. I did see, and it was shared with me just this week, an article from the Epoch Times about a guy in Pennsylvania who hadn't filed in 17 years, and they weren't hounding him or coming after him either. So he just chose not to be a part of the system anymore.
I just put a link into the chat saying for those who wanting to be free from the IRS, see number 4 at brillianceandcommerce.com/freedom from tax. So I just put that link in chat for those.
Thank you, Tonson. That's great. Everybody should just go to that. You've been at this a long time, and you've actually won.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
A case against them. So you've got some clout that I couldn't offer there. So good. Thank you.
Okay. So Eric is asking, have the White Hats done any recent testing of the EBS?
No, the recent test that we had on the 4th of October was done by the cabal. Well over a year ago, the White Hats stormed into Mount Weather and took control of the national emergency broadcast system that's held in Mount Weather.
Where's that?
There was a fire. There was a firefight involved in that. It was not an easy thing that they had to do, but they took control of that. When that happened, then the cabal decided to go to Plan B, and they needed to try to reconstruct something that's similar, right? So they did, and October 4th was a test of that to see if they had been successful in putting their system back together. The test was supposed to go off at 2:20 or something in the afternoon. And it was supposed to be a 30-second tone that went out, but it didn't last that long. It was actually more like 10 to 15 seconds, maybe. What I heard was that the White Hats were trying to find the location of where they were doing this because they had been all over looking for it and couldn't find it. They finally just had decided, we're going to have to wait for them to push the button so then we can figure out where it's coming from. So that's kind of what happened. They found it. They found the location within, I think they said 10 to 12 seconds. It was identified by one of our satellites, and they sent a jamming signal that actually stopped the rest of the broadcast. So that's why it was shortened. It was only so long, because they were able to jam it. And then they were able to go to the location and get rid of it. So these things they're never going to be in the paper. The cabal's not going to use their media to explain that they keep losing these battles. But that's one in which the good guys are trying to make inroads. I don't know if they will ever do a test before we get to this, but you never know. They may say, hey, we need to test it and make sure it's still working. Or they may just fire it off. I don't know the answer on that, really.
Thank you. Mark is asking, what is going on with the postal power? I'm guessing he's referring to the Universal Postal Union in Switzerland.
One of the last vestiges of a national government office that was actually government was the post office. It finally surrendered in 1968 with the creation of the U.S. Postal Service Corporation. And it's been a corporation ever since then. What's happening with the actual government post office, I don't know. I've done a little research on it. That was the time when they started issuing all the zip codes. And everybody's like, oh, yeah, your mail will get there faster with a zip code. It actually doesn't matter. It gets there the same speed regardless. But we did find out through some digging that it looks like those zip codes are not owned by the states in which you reside. They're actually owned by Washington, D.C., which is a territory outside of the sovereign states of the Union. So when you're using their zip codes, I guess you're identifying as a resident of D.C. I guess that's how that works.
Yeah.
That's probably how they get you into the tax system, is my guess. Because, if you're a resident of DC, you, according to the 16th Amendment, you have to pay taxes. It's not like the sovereign states. So.
Okay. 323 area code. You got your hand up. Let's hear from you.
Yeah, this is Gerald, LA. A couple of things regarding the 13th Amendment. I have a copy, certified copy, well, a copy of a certified copy, that Colorado as a territory actually agreed to go into the U.S. at that time, and they recognized the 13th Amendment, which had been ratified according to this certification. I will be in contact with Thompson, so he wished, as soon as I can locate it and send a copy. Item number two.
Good to see that. Yeah.
I will send it. I have to. My eyesight's poor, so I have to help out. On the other, a friend of mine did do this regarding the so-called elite filing with the IRS. There's a special office, or at least it was, in Washington, whereby they would file legitimately and actually print their own, what do you call their own payment order, whatever, money order. They're very fictitious that it had been paid. So when they stamp, here's my filing, legitimate maybe, and here's my payment, fictitious for sure. And that friend of mine actually did that to a very special office, very special people, the elite, whatever. That's how they paid their taxes, and to prove that they did, all was all fictitious. And I pass the talking stick. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, Gerald.
Thank you.
Any comments, Will?
No, I'd just be interested to see the document. I think that from my research, I had come to a pretty strong possibility there was probably 13 amendments, but I don't think the 14th was ratified. So that would be interesting to see that.
Yeah. Okay. Ashok is asking, what would happen to us as humanity even after the reset, given the qualities like greed and ego and bias and all things negative? How would the world change if one is unwilling to shed these qualities? And we have seen time and again that civilizations come and go, but things repeat themselves, and majority feel it convenient to rather ignore the 10 Commandments. How is it going to be different this time?
Well, that's a good question. I'll tell you what my thoughts are on it. We're living in a time when it's pretty hard to be secretive about anything. The higher consciousness goes, the more transparent everything becomes. And if you've got people that are not wanting to live in a loving and peaceful communion with others in the community, you're going to find people just don't want to interact with them. They don't want to transact business with them. They're going to find it very difficult because they may find themselves on the outs of financial transactions even, because they're choosing to stay into those lower energies. You're correct about the difficulty many have had in obeying the basic 10 commandments. Wouldn't the world be wonderful if everybody was perfect at that? I think all of us probably maybe still struggle with some of those things, but it's interesting that how we've seen, particularly since the 60s, I'd say about the 60s on, how we've seen the society becoming okay with removing them. They used to be posted in the courthouses and places like this as a reminder, right? A higher way to live. And that was God's expectation. But we've seen that removed. We've seen, I was surprised during what some called the Summer of Love, the complete desecration of monuments and things we had in our country. It was quite surprising to see that. But I think that is just an expression of the frustration on the side of the cabal. They don't want us to become independent people. They don't want us to love one another and love God and serve each other and to be completely self-responsible, because they can't control someone like that. They can't enslave someone like that. So there a lot of the really dramatic things that we've seen over the last several years is some of their just lashing out, an expression of frustration. It's almost like the gnashing of teeth or whatever, because they can't have their way. But it's amazing what happens when you stand within your own power and your own sovereignty as a person, and you make choices that are based upon your own knowledge. They can't really affect that. They can't they can't get into that and they don't like it, sometimes you have to just dismiss them.
And Ashok, I would just add that you have to have an understanding of the yugas. You have an Indian name, so perhaps you are familiar with the yugas. These are the precession of the equinoxes, periods of 26,000 years approximately, in which the vibrations, the frequency changes on the planet. And there have been many ancient periods of high frequency where it was nearly impossible for evil to survive because the energy was so high that as soon as you have a thought, it manifests. And if it's a destructive thought, you end up destroying yourself. Instant karma. So in the golden age, the frequency is very, very high. Now, there's been a lot of controversy on what age we are in. And I've been studying some of the greatest seers about this. And the consensus of the most enlightened ones is that we are at the end of the dark age right now. And it's not going to be 300 years from now. It's not going to be 1,000 years. It's this generation, this decade. I don't know what year, perhaps, if you want to pin it down, but this period right now, this within a few years, okay? 2023, 24, 2030, 2035, this general period right now, the dark age is phasing out. So it's a galactic event, it's a solar event, and it's a spiritual event that has to do with frequencies, the unified field, the permeation of that in the molecular structure, the atomic structure of the human body, and the awakening of the universal consciousness gradually more and more and spreading to the human population. And so this is something I study, something I pay attention to, and it is irreversible. It is irreversible. So the more the light spreads within human beings, the more it just affects more and more people, and it has a logarithmic expansion and growth, so that there comes a point. It's very much like heating water on the stove. So it's getting hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter. It's a gradual process. But at a certain point, 212 degrees, all of a sudden it changes from a liquid into a gas. So it's like that. It's a gradual increase or change or transformation, ascension, and then there's a moment when it transforms. And that negative quality of greed and of fear and all of that will just evaporate from most of the population or all of the population. And anyone still holding on to those emotions just won't be able to stay here. The frequency will be too high. Everything Will is talking about in the government and financial sector is aligned with this and is part and parcel of it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's exactly how it's going to go. That's a great explanation. I like that with the water, because you can feel this building even right now. We're about to reach a point where everything's just going to go boom. We're there.
EB is asking, what role do you expect crypto and in particular Bitcoin to have on the new financial system?
The only thing that's been told to me about that is that only those particular things that are compliant with the new ISO 20022 standards are going to be able to be a part of what's coming. Some of those currencies that are compliant with that now, and I don't know all of them that are, but I've heard that some of them actually are backed by something real. It's not just a keystroke on a computer. I can say this: when you get to real sound money and something that's issued, that's legitimate by the government, it's backed by gold and silver. What else do you need?
Yep.
I would think that would be the superior choice at that point.
All right. Brenda and John asking, why are the lawyers being retrained? They have proven they're criminals by actively participating in the fraud. I think they should be shipped off to Britain.
Well, there's probably a lot that share your your sentiment and opinion on that. Um, what's interesting is we've had an entire system for decades now that has taught them a specific way. This is how law is. They don't tell them, hey, this isn't the law of the land or this isn't constitutional law, right? Most of them don't even understand what constitutional law means. They're just taught how to litigate in these admiralty courts. So that's what they do. I think that we will see a dramatic shrinking of that profession. I don't think there'll be as many people engaging in it, except for those that are just really committed to truth.
Yeah. All right. JB, you've had your hand up for a while. Let's go back to you for a moment and see what further you had to say. Are you there, JB?
Still muted, I think.
Okay. So EB is asking, I am in the horse industry for pleasure and showing. I'm seeing animals acting differently. Any thoughts on how the new financial system will affect the animal industry for competition? Very curious on how the frequency will change in that industry.
What I can tell you regarding that, and I grew up on a farm and around horses and cattle and a variety of animals. Every living thing on this planet is affected by light and frequency. And so when you see that rise, don't be surprised that you see the animals behaving in a way that maybe is less aggressive to each other. I think ultimately it's going to head to that. The interesting thing about horses is that of all the animal species, they seem to have always taken an interest in humans and wanting to interact with humans, much like dogs and cats. And so, how is that going to affect the industry? I think those that love equestrian and love the whole sport and training their horses and competing, I think that's going to continue, and it's going to probably continue to grow. With the unleashing of prosperity that's coming, it's going to make it easier for some people that maybe couldn't have gotten into that to then go buy a farm and maybe do it, something they've always wanted to do. So I see nothing but good things going forward in terms of that particular segment of the market economy.
When humans have more compassion with each other, they'll have more compassion for animals too.
Yeah.
Yeah. JB, you're unmuted.
Okay, hi again. And I want to thank Bill in advance, because usually after I ask my question, I can't say thank you at the end. So I'm saying thank you now. Anyway, there is an order supposedly regarding EVS and the RV and the GCR. How do you envision this order, and how do you see it in relationship to Ascension? Because for some of us, we're all gearing up towards the Ascension process, like Tenzin had alluded to. But there's that if you listen to the people that are at the Galactic Federation that are running things, like the Pleiadians or Pleiades, they're the ones in charge in what's going on down here on the planet. At least that's what I'm reading. And they say we're not going to have any of these things that you have discussed and I have read and so many people know about, like the RV and the quantum system and NASARA and medbeds. They're not going to happen, or EBS, until the shift, which is the Sheen or Ascension, 5D, some people call it, because a lot of people wouldn't understand this disclosure. They wouldn't get it. They would be overwhelmed with shock and horror. So back to my question, Bill, is how do you see this order and how do you put this order in with the ascension process? And I yield. Thank you.
There's kind of multiple questions in there, but I'll try to cover those. In regards to the order of things, what I've been told, very simply, is if somebody's giving you a date, you can dismiss it. In regards to what's going to happen in terms of when will the RV go first? Will the EBS go first? Until we have the new gold-backed currency, I don't expect any of the RV transactions to occur because they're all supposed to be paid in the new currency that's not debt-based. So I would expect that there would be events that would allow the conclusion of the current system and the announcement of a new one in order to receive funds. Now, could some of that be done quietly in the background? Perhaps. But even if it was, I don't expect anybody to have spendable until it's announced because that wouldn't make sense. So that's just my thoughts on that. In regards to how does that affect all of us with the ascension process, we're going to be coming into, many call it the golden age, the age of enlightenment, all of these things where technology is going to come pouring in that has been suppressed and held back from us for a very long time. And that's going to move at the pace of the consciousness and responsibility of the people. There's a remarkable thing with technology, and that is that technology, if not managed responsibly, can be hurtful, can actually take down a society. So it'll be, I believe it'll be released on the level that we're able to take self-responsibility and act in a moral, conscious manner with one another. As this technology unfolds, you're going to eventually find that we have various machines that do all kinds of things. You know, I talked earlier on this call about a replicator that's going to produce, it's mainly food and drink. Okay. That's its primary purpose. But if you have replicators that do various things, eventually you get to a point where, do you need money anymore? You know, is there some other way that we interact or exchange energy with one another? So do we ascend to a place where money's just not that important to us anymore? I think perhaps that's a possibility. In fact, I think that's the only place it does go if we continue this path of enlightenment, is we're going to get to where, you know, passing around a piece of paper is going to feel silly to us, actually. So I do think that there's a process to this, and some of it must wait till the people are ready. That's probably the best way I can put it. Thank you for your questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, JB. Daryl is asking, what else do we need with a government currency? What about privacy?
The quantum financial system is designed where everybody gets to have an account. You'll find an increased privacy, and kind of like this. Some of you have social media accounts. Maybe you have a Facebook account or a Twitter. Some have a PayPal account, whatever. It's a means of money. Does the bank know how much money you have in your PayPal account? No, it has no ability to even look at it. unless that bank is PayPal. So the quantum financial system will be a system where you can hold money that's independent of banks or other people. Only you know what is there. Only you can send from your account. So this requires another level that you be self-responsible, that you do good things with it. Now the system, I think, has some fail safes in it because they want to avoid things like human trafficking and all these nightmarish things that have happened to this planet. But as long as you're just a good person and you're trying to engage in business or commerce, I don't see any issue with that. In fact, it's going to be interesting because you're going to have banks that will want your business. They'll want to work out a wealth management plan or a grow your money in some way or whatever. And if they have some legitimate service to offer you, then you can move funds to that bank for that purpose. But they're never going to know what you have. They can't see it. So that's very different. Today, banks can see what's there, and other banks can interact with your bank because they have this interbank agreement that allows them to see what's there. So we really don't have much privacy today as much as we think we do. And so the new systems are going to allow us to be more private, at least in terms of that. And we'll also have more freedom because if you want to send money to, your friend James, and maybe he lives in Australia, you can do that and he'll have that in seconds and it'll clear for him right away. And you may send dollars, and what does he get on his end? He'll get Australian dollars, right? So when these countries go to a gold-backed or metal-backed currency, you're going to find everybody starts to come at parity with one another in terms of the dollar. So that'll be built into the system, an immediate exchange, and you won't pay somebody to do that exchange. You won't have to pay a fee for that. It's just part of the system.
That's
Hope
a
that helps.
fabulous answer, Will. Absolutely fabulous. It sounds absolutely right on and correct to me. Thank you. Yeah. Joy is asking, Will, you had said in passing in several meetings back something about Prince William and Kate are on the side of the new earth and would be ending the monarchy or something like that. Did I hear correctly that they are actually not in agreement with the cabal, and so they're just keeping up appearances of the old order for now?
There's a lot of things going on in terms of not just England, but other countries that have had a monarchy or a king and queen system. I can tell you that it's already been dealt with and decided. Those that choose to work with the good and to do what's right will be recognized for doing what's right. I've heard it that that some of the members of the family actually want out. They don't want to be in it anymore.
Like Harry and Meghan.
Yeah, like Harry and Meghan, they're choosing something else. I think when all is exposed about what's happened in the past, that's when you'll see those that are making the right choices at this point do the right thing. If it falls to William, let's just use that example. Let's just say that it falls to William because maybe something happens to Charles. Well, what's he going to do? Well, if all is exposed that Charles and everybody have done evil things, he may just say the best thing is that we just end this, and he may dissolve it. I've heard that that's a possibility, which is why I mentioned it before. Ultimately, I don't know that affirmatively that's what he's going to do, because the chess board is still active. There's still a few plays left to go, and so we'll have to see ultimately how they're going to handle that. What I do think we're seeing is that many are beginning to recognize that one side's going to win. And so there's probably some people that are trying to figure out if they can switch sides even now. Well, if I offer up enough information, can I get off? I don't know what kind of deals. Q said in his drops that there will be no deals. In other words, if people had shown by their actions and their choices exactly who and what they are, then that's it. I mean, why give them a deal? Okay. So is it going to be cut and dried like that? We'll wait and see. The tribunals will be shown to us at some point, whether they occur live or they were done ahead of time. I think many of it will be ahead of time, even if it looks live to us on the TV. But we will see that. There has to be a day of reckoning, a day of justice, in order for the world to heal from what's happened. Justice is a part of the healing process in order to move forward. Hope that helps.
Fantastic. Thank you. David is asking, with the QFS accounts, will people have one account for their personal, and will there be accounts available for our natural law trusts?
I think you'll be able to open various accounts for business purposes or trusts or other things like that. Yeah, I think that it's kind of similar to how you can open up multiple accounts now. I think you'll have the same functionality. If it's, if a trust is its own entity. So I would think that would be a fairly simple thing to do.
Yeah. Thank you, David, for your question. Mark is asking, can you elaborate more on the quantum system?
What I've said about the quantum financial system is about all I'm allowed to really say right now. It will be revealed to everybody. There'll be more details coming, and some of it could even be a little different. Like maybe they don't even call it the quantum financial system. Like maybe the name is even something else. The system is there. Okay. Regardless of what name it has, the functionality will be there. That much I know. So I can, I feel comfortable in saying that. It's going to be kind of liberating, I think, for many of us to be able to freely interact, not have to, well, I got to get to the bank in the morning before I can send you a wire for this thing. You can, just do it in seconds. It's going to be amazing because it's going to allow things to happen. I know some people that have projects, credible, tremendous projects, and we are involved in some of these. I can tell you that it isn't just a money problem in order to get these projects off the ground, that there are all these other components for a project to be successful. And that gets into government restrictions. It gets into, how many regulations that you have to deal with in order to build something, in order to get, permission to put up a building. There's all kinds of stuff that goes on. And we have a very heavy system in terms of regulation right now. And it's necessary for that also to ease in addition to the money so that the projects can really be fulfilled in a way that I think would bless everyone. So it isn't just a money issue. We're talking about releasing the control grip where people can begin to express themselves through these projects and in a way that is helping each other and helping humanity. Thank you.
Yeah, I think when people become more self-governed, I was writing about this in my book, Sovereignty Consciousness, in the 90s, that when ethics and consciousness rise enough inside you, you become self-governed. And you are automatically, spontaneously good. And then the government doesn't need to, you don't need a big brother to regulate you anymore. So the need for all those millions of regulations kind of goes away. And So as the as that spreads to enough
I
of the
agree.
population, yeah, the freedom can be
Yeah.
there. I think the quantum financial system got that name from the quantum computers, and that is public information, as you know. It's IBM and some of the big computer companies have had these quantum computers for some years, and they use these quantum computers.
Yeah, but when they actually launch it to the public, you know, say, "Hey, here's what it is," um, it'll be whatever name they tell
Yeah,
us at that point.
yeah.
But you know, functionality wise, it's going to pretty much run like I talked about. So
I don't know if you've listened to any of Michelle Fielding's programs, but she has said that someone was asking her, well, isn't it still another repeat of the old centralized control system? And she said, no, it's not going to control. It's not like the attempt of the cabal to issue a digital currency where they can manipulate everyone's spending habits. The QFS, she said, is a system of freedom, just like you were saying. That the only party, there will not be a party watching over everybody's actions and approving or disapproving your expenditures. She said there'll just be fail safes built in to prevent obvious harmful use of it. But other than that, they will not monitor.
I would agree with her on that. I think that's the only thing that
It's
makes
more like
sense.
the internet.
Is it
It's
would be
not like
that way.
centralized in some cabal's hands or something, you know? It's a decentralized system, she said. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I see you, Will, as an administrator in this new world. You came from banking and you saw the flaws in it and you left. And you're kind of helping to build the new, and you would make a great wealth administrator, uh, for philanthropy and humanitarian projects. And that's what's growing and preparing to happen right now.
We've been 15 plus years putting together the programs that we have for these various projects. Um, we intend to be a vehicle to help projects get off the ground and get launched. So we're assisting, you know, with that process, and we want to see thousands launched per year. I mean, we don't want this to be a small thing. We want everyone to get involved and make a difference in the world, and let's build beautiful things because we can.
Yes. Felt is asking, as a banking expert, as we transition to the golden age, may we pay off debt and purchase real estate property by accessing our Cestiquate v. Trust from the U.S. Treasury through the IRS forms being approved by IRS during the interim period, since it's in our trust that the bankers and government have used this to make profits off our living while deceiving us into existing as their financial debt slaves? If so, can you guide us on how to lead us through this process? Many of us love and learn from you.
I'm not a knowledgeable person on the subject of how to tap into the trust they created when they monetized your birth certificate. I've heard that some people are getting into that and are doing work with that. I'm as curious probably as you are about how that might work or going forward. If these accounts do exist and there's money in them, when the cabal system comes down, I would imagine it would make sense to me that that would be returned to the person who they used your name to monetize this money with. Will they do that? I can't say for sure if they will because I'm not an expert on the subject. But I am quite curious because if they were to release that back to the people whose name was used, that could be a tremendous source of wealth transfer to the people. I mean, that could be amazing. I don't know if it'll come from that. I do know there are other things that should happen. But that's a good question. I'll have to look into that. Maybe I can get a little more detail on how that might work.
I get questions like that all the time. Will people writing to me saying studied with various people, training, them on how to access the money from their birth certificate. And to this day, I haven't heard of a single person who's actually done it. And a few who tried went to jail. So
I don't until the system comes down. I think that might be a challenge.
yeah,
As long as here's the thing is the money that's in there is probably fiat. So what value is it going to have when this thing flips over?
yeah.
That being said, they did use people's names. They, they used, to me, that's an abuse of the people, what they did. So, should there be compensation or some kind of reparations for that? I'm not the one to make that decision. But it would certainly be a great blessing handed to the people if they did that, obviously.
EB is asking, how and by whom will the leaders of the new world be chosen?
Well, it's still going to be by vote, but we're going to have systems that are not corrupted. It wouldn't be a far stretch to say, well, the same system that we do our banking and money movements on, we could also use to vote with. And you can only record one vote. The system only lets you do that. It'd be impossible to actually hack it. So it will be by vote. Will we always need the full leaders that we think of as terms of the government that we have now? No, the more that we become enlightened and sovereign and self-regulating, as Tonsa talked about, the less we need that. I mean, what do you need government to do for you? For most people that are sovereign and are wanting to do they just want them out of the way. Just let me live my life, right? If you're not looking to the government for money or any other thing, if you're self-supporting, if you are completely self-responsible, you wouldn't need the government for anything, would you? You wouldn't need a leader. Now, it doesn't mean that there couldn't still be social issues that maybe need to be voted on, but maybe we vote on the issues rather than vote on the people. I can't say where that's going to go eventually, but it will be by the voice of the people. That much I can say.
That's what's been predicted, is that we'll vote directly for the issues rather than for representatives. Yeah. Yeah.
Very good. Makes sense. Yeah.
Not so much a leadership anymore as it will be just an administrator, like an air traffic controller or a postmaster, just somebody fulfilling an administrative office, but not dominating people. Yeah. Well, you've been generous with us today. One lady writes, Brenda says, can Will come back once a month? 3 months is too long. Thank you.
It's very kind of you. Yeah, we'll try to do another one before long, so it's not such a long stretch.
Yes.
There's just been a lot going on in both of our lives, so I think it's but we'll have to try to plan that out a little better.
Yes. All right, Brenda, we'll think about that and maybe we'll do that. We'll see.
I'm getting to where I'm going to have to wrap up here though, because I've got some things I still need to get to. But I've appreciated the questions. It's been a very interesting discussion tonight.
Fantastic. Your answers are eloquent as always, and you've shed a bright light on everything going on. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. You've been a great, 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 great group, a great family. We are a family together building the golden age. All right. So thanks.
Excellent. Tonson, if you'll send that to me, I'll put it up on our channel as well. And
I sure will.
So everybody can see it. So yeah, be good.
Okay. Enjoy.